8 guys, 1 survival show, 0 guarantees. When JYP Entertainment launched the reality program Stray Kids in 2017, the premise was brutally simple: compete or go home. Out of the original 9 trainees who walked into that building, only 8 would debut. And yet, the strangest thing happened. Instead of tearing each other apart, they built something that most groups spend entire careers chasing and never find. These aren't 8 people who were assigned to be close. They're 8 people who chose each other, over and over again, in circumstances that would have broken most friendships before they even started. They lost a member, they survived a global pandemic mid-rise, they wrote and produced music about their own pain while living it in real time. They became one of the biggest acts on the planet, not despite the pressure, but somehow because of it. So what actually holds them together? What happened behind the cameras, inside the practice rooms, and across years of exhaustion and doubt that turned 8 strangers into something that looks, from the outside, almost unbreakable? That's exactly what we're about to get into. Number 10. Born from competition, not comfort. Most K-pop groups are assembled in a company boardroom. A producer picks faces, assigns positions, hands them a debut date. Stray Kids were not assembled, they were tested. In October 2017, JYP Entertainment launched a survival reality program simply titled Stray Kids, and the premise left no room for sentiment. 9 trainees would compete across a series of evaluations, and only those who proved themselves worthy would debut as a group. The ones who didn't make the cut went back to being trainees, or left entirely. That structure alone tells you something important. These 8 men did not begin their story in a comfortable practice room with matching outfits and a scheduled photo shoot. They began it knowing that the person standing next to them was also their competition. What makes this origin unusual, and what most casual listeners of their music don't fully register, is that several of these trainees already knew each other before the cameras rolled. Bang Chan had been a JYP trainee since 2010, making him a 7-year veteran of the system by the time the show began. He was 20 years old and had already watched debut opportunities pass him by. Lee No had trained for less than a year. Hyunjin and Seungmin were teenagers who had barely settled into the training center. Felix had moved from Australia to South Korea at 15, specifically to pursue this, with limited Korean language ability and 0 guarantee of outcome. IN, whose real name is Yang Jangin, was the youngest, still in middle school when filming started. The age gaps, the experience gaps, the cultural gaps, these were all real, and the format of the show did not smooth them over. Each evaluation round required the trainees to write, compose, and perform original music, which was then judged by JYP founder Park Jin-young himself. This wasn't a talent competition where you sing someone else's song and hope the judges like your voice. This was a test of creative identity. Who are you as an artist, and can you prove it under pressure, repeatedly, with the threat of elimination hanging over every performance? The level of creative exposure that demands is significant. You can fake enthusiasm, you can rehearse charm, you cannot fake whether your original composition is good or whether your lyrics reveal something true about you. What emerged from those evaluation rounds and what viewers watching the show in real time could see developing episode by episode was a creative dynamic that didn't look like competition at all. Bang Chan, Changbin, and Han began gravitating toward each other as a production unit, a collaboration that would eventually formalize into the subunit 3 Racha. Hyunjin and Han developed a creative rapport rooted in songwriting and emotional expression. Felix, despite being one of the least experienced linguistically and technically, earned his place through a commitment to performance quality that was consistent across every evaluation. Seungmin, who had originally trained as a baseball player and pivoted to music, approached every challenge with a methodical discipline that didn't look flashy but never missed. IN, the youngest, was consistently praised for a natural stage presence that belied his age. When the final lineup was announced in January 2018, 9 trainees had become 8. Kim Woo-jin debuted with the group, and the 7 remaining, along with Bang Chan, stepped forward as Stray Kids. What they carried out of that show wasn't just a debut opportunity, it was evidence. Each of them had seen the others work under genuine pressure, make real creative choices, and show up consistently when it mattered. That is a different kind of foundation than being told you're a group and learning to get along. They had already watched each other fight for it. And what happens when you already trust someone's work ethic before you've even released your first song? That's something that doesn't come apart easily. The next piece of their story makes that even clearer. Number 9. 8, not 9. Stray Kids officially debuted on March 25, 2018 as a 9-member group. Bang Chan, Woojin, Lino, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and In. 9 people who had survived a public elimination process together, released their debut extended play mixtape, and began building an audience that responded immediately and fiercely to the raw creative energy they put on record. 19 months later, that lineup changed. On October 27, 2019, JYP Entertainment released a brief, formal statement. Kim Woo-jin would be leaving Stray Kids due to personal circumstances, effective immediately. No extended explanation, no farewell stage, 1 paragraph, and then silence. For any group, losing a member 19 months into a career is destabilizing. For Stray Kids specifically, the timing carried additional weight. They had just come off an intensive promotional cycle for their Klee series, 3 extended plays released across 2019 that represented some of the most cohesive and critically acknowledged work of their early career. The fanbase, known as Stay, had grown substantially across that period. The group had completed a world tour. They were at a point where momentum was genuinely building, and then one of the 9 people who had built that momentum with them was suddenly gone. What happened next is worth paying close attention to because it tells you something specific about the internal structure of this group. They did not pause. They did not delay. In December 2019, less than 2 months after Woojin's departure, Stray Kids released Klee Levanter, the final installment of the Klee series, as 8 members. The record had already been in development, and they saw it through. The lead single, Double Knot, had been performed at KCON Live in August, still as 9 members. By the time Levanter arrived, the group had adjusted, regrouped, and delivered the project without the kind of public fracture that such a sudden change might reasonably have produced. What the members said publicly in the period that followed was minimal, and that restraint itself is informative. In Korean entertainment culture, where parasocial relationships between artists and fans run deep, the pressure to address, explain, or emotionally process major group events on camera is significant. Stray Kids largely chose not to perform their grief for the audience. What they communicated instead was continuity. They kept their schedules, they kept performing, and in interviews during that period, when the subject came up, the language they used was consistent. They were 8, they were moving forward, and they were doing it together. What makes this moment critical to understanding their bond is what it revealed about the group's center of gravity. Some groups are held together by an external structure, a company's management decisions, a contract timeline, a shared debt to a debut opportunity. When that structure shifts, the group shifts with it. Stray Kids demonstrated in late 2019 that their cohesion didn't depend on a fixed roster. It depended on the 8 people who remained choosing, collectively and without apparent negotiation, to stay the course. Bang Chan, as the group's leader, carried visible responsibility during this period, and the members around him, particularly those who had been closest to the creative core of the group's output, held steady alongside him. The Levanter extended play, and specifically its title track, took on a layer of meaning for Stay that went beyond its lyrics. The word Levanter refers to a strong easterly wind in the Mediterranean, something that moves powerfully and persistently regardless of conditions. For fans who watched 8 people release a full project 2 months after a significant personal and professional disruption, the title felt less like a coincidence and more like a statement. Groups that hold together through loss don't do it because nothing went wrong. They do it because something underneath was already strong enough to absorb the impact. And that same strength was about to face an entirely different kind of test. Number 8. They write what they live. There's a fundamental difference between a group that performs music and a group that makes it. Most K-pop acts, even enormously successful ones, receive songs from in-house producers, record them, and then present them to the world. The songwriting credit belongs to someone in a studio they may never have visited. The emotional content is crafted by professionals whose job is to manufacture relatability. That is not a criticism of the system. It produces commercially effective music at scale. But it does mean that when a group sings about struggle, isolation, or doubt, there is always a degree of distance between the lyric and the person delivering it. Stray Kids collapsed that distance almost from the beginning, and understanding how they did it is central to understanding what holds them together. Before Stray Kids officially debuted in March 2018, 3 of its members were already operating as an independent production unit. Bangchan, Changbin, and Han, performing under the aliases CB97, Spear B, and J1 respectively, had formed a subunit called 3 Raja and were releasing original music on SoundCloud. These were not polished promotional singles designed to build a fanbase. They were raw, rapidly produced tracks that covered topics like the pressure of the trainee system, self-doubt, ambition, and the specific psychological weight of pursuing a career in the Korean entertainment industry as a teenager or young adult. Bangchan was 19. Han was 16, Changbin was 17. The music they made sounded like people genuinely working something out, not performing a manufactured version of vulnerability. That creative unit became the engine of Stray Kids' production identity. Bangchan, Changbin, and Han have written and produced the majority of the group's discography, a catalog that, by any measure, is unusually large for a group of their age and tenure. But the self-produced label, as it applies to Stray Kids, is not exclusive to those 3. Hyunjin has songwriting credits across multiple albums. Felix, Seungmin, Lino, and IN have participated in the lyric writing process at various points. The group operates more like a collaborative writing room than a traditional idol act, with different members contributing to different tracks depending on the project and what they are personally working through at any given time. This matters to the question of their bond for a specific reason. When you co-write music with someone, particularly music that draws from personal experience, you are giving them access to something private. The Stray Kids discography contains songs about anxiety, about the fear of failure, about feeling like you do not belong, about the specific loneliness of performing happiness when you are not entirely sure you feel it. These themes appear across albums with a consistency that is not accidental. The members have spoken in multiple interviews, on Korean variety programs, in international press, and during live fan interactions about the fact that their music reflects what they are actually experiencing during the period of its creation. I Am Not, 2018, Clay 1, Miro, 2019, Injing, 2020, No Easy, 2021, each album was written from inside whatever the group was navigating at that moment. That means the people who made it were making it together, processing shared and individual experiences simultaneously and putting it on record. The trust required to write honestly about your own psychological state and then release it under your real name in front of an audience of millions is significant. The trust required to do that consistently across multiple albums with the same 8 people watching, that is something else entirely. Bangchan has described the group's music-making process in interviews as inherently communal, with members sharing ideas, pushing back on each other, and building tracks that reflect genuine internal conversation rather than a single vision imposed from the top. In that environment, creative disagreement is not a fracture in the relationship, it's evidence that the relationship is strong enough to handle honesty. The music is not the product of 8 people being agreeable, it's the product of 8 people being real. And what that process quietly built over years of shared creative exposure is a kind of mutual knowledge that goes well beyond what most colleagues or even most friends ever develop about each other.
Number 7, the leader who handpicked his own team. In the standard Korean entertainment model, a group's leader is typically chosen by the management based on age, seniority, or administrative capability, but the inception of Stray Kids followed a completely different path that set their internal hierarchy apart. Bang Chan, having entered JYP Entertainment as a trainee in 2010, spent 7 years watching his peers, members of GOT7, Day 6, and Twice, debut ahead of him while he remained in the practice rooms. When JYP founder Park Jin-young finally gave him the opportunity to debut, the agency did not hand him a pre-selected roster. Instead, they gave Chan the autonomy to assemble the lineup himself. This rare mandate meant that Chan did not simply inherit a group of colleagues, but actively chose each of the trainees who would stand alongside him, selecting Lino, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and IN based on their unique skill sets, work ethic, and personal chemistry. This unique arrangement immediately changed the dynamic of the group from the outset, transforming the typical corporate-directed trainee relationship into a group bound by mutual selection and a profound sense of shared responsibility. During the 2017 survival show, this bond was tested to its absolute limit when Park Jin-young eliminated Lee No in Episode 4, followed by Felix in Episode 8, citing performance mistakes and language barriers. The emotional toll of these decisions fell heavily on Chan, who had promised the members that they would debut together as a complete unit, and his visible distress on camera showed a leader who felt personally responsible for the fates of the people he had chosen. Chan spent the subsequent episodes working intensively with the remaining trainees, while constantly advocating for the return of the eliminated members, leading to a final evaluation where the company allowed all 9 trainees to perform together one last time. The overwhelming support from the live audience and the cohesion of the performance forced the agency to reverse the eliminations, cementing the debut of the full group and proving that their unity was not just a narrative choice, but a practical necessity. By establishing a group where the leader had personally selected and fought for every single member, Stray Kids bypassed the manufactured corporate loyalty that defines many rookie groups, replacing it with a deep, verified trust in Chan's leadership and each other's dedication. This foundation of self-selection and advocacy created a protective shield around the members, ensuring that when the inevitable pressures of the K-pop industry intensified, they looked to their leader and each other for validation, rather than relying on external corporate approval. As the group transitioned from rookies to global performers, this initial pact of mutual trust became the bedrock of their daily operations, allowing them to navigate complex creative decisions and intense training schedules with a unified front that only a hand-picked family could sustain. But while a strong leader can assemble a team, keeping that team from fracturing under the physical and mental demands of the industry requires a shared space where they can unpack the pressure, leading to a ritual that kept them grounded even as their world grew louder. Number 6, friction transformed into brotherhood. Putting 8 highly ambitious young artists into a single living space is a recipe for either lifelong cohesion or immediate disaster, and the early years of Stray Kids' dorm life tested both possibilities. During their trainee days and the first 2 years of their career, the members lived together in tight quarters, navigating a demanding schedule that left them sleep-deprived and constantly under the public eye. In such a high-pressure environment, personality clashes were inevitable, most notably between Han and Hyunjin, who have since openly discussed how they frequently argued over minor details, choreography execution, and daily behavioral habits during their rookie era. Rather than burying these conflicts under corporate-mandated politeness or letting silent resentments fester, the members had to actively develop a system for conflict resolution that relied on absolute candor. They established a practice of holding regular group discussions where grievances could be aired out directly, ensuring that no single member carried unaddressed frustration into their performances or studio sessions. This commitment to verbalizing their issues, even when uncomfortable, allowed Han and Hyunjin to move past their initial friction and build a deep mutual respect that eventually translated into collaborative stage performances and shared creative output. As the group's success grew and their financial circumstances improved, they made a pragmatic decision that further highlights their mature approach to group longevity. Rather than forcing a monolithic domestic arrangement, they divided into 2 separate dorms in 2021 based on lifestyle preferences. The division eventually saw Bangchan, Lee No, Hyunjin, and Seungmin sharing one apartment, while Changbin, Han, Felix, and IN occupied another nearby unit. This strategic division of space allowed them to maintain essential personal boundaries, tailor their environments to their sleeping habits, and get adequate rest without compromising their professional synergy. Within these separate spaces, they maintained their bond through shared acts of domestic support, such as Lee No frequently preparing meals for his flatmates, which kept their environments feeling like homes rather than just functional workspaces. By acknowledging their individual differences and adjusting their living conditions accordingly, they demonstrated that their bond did not require constant forced proximity to survive. Instead, it thrived because they respected each other's need for space. They realized that preserving the group's unity meant protecting the mental well-being of each member, and that sometimes a short physical distance is exactly what keeps people close. This balance of shared professional ambition and respected personal boundaries ensured that the friction of their early years dissolved into a stable, long-term working relationship, paving the way for them to face external challenges as a unified front. This domestic maturity would soon be tested on a global scale when an unprecedented worldwide crisis forced the entire music industry to halt, challenging the group to find new ways to connect with each other and their audience when the physical stage was temporarily stripped away. Number 5. The Crucible of the 7-member stage. In early 2021, Stray Kids entered Kingdom Legendary War, a high-stakes television competition where 6 prominent K-pop groups competed through complex conceptual performances judged by industry professionals and global viewers. The pressure to deliver high-concept stages was already immense, but midway through preparation, the group faced a major structural disruption when Hyunjin went on an indefinite hiatus due to public controversies regarding his school days. This sudden shift left the remaining 7 members, Bangchan, Lee No, Changbin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and IN in a highly vulnerable position, forcing them to compete in one of the most grueling shows of their career while down a key dancer and center performer. Instead of withdrawing or letting the disruption affect their output, the group chose to adapt, taking on the massive technical challenge of restructuring complex formations, re-recording audio parts, and reassigning choreographies that had originally been designed for 8 people. This process required intense physical labor, with the members spending late nights in practice rooms to execute acrobatics and synchronized routines under tight broadcast deadlines. To make up for the missing member, each remaining trainee and debut partner had to expand their role. Changbin and Han took charge of the rap unit evaluations, delivering rapid-fire verses that anchored the group's musical identity, while Seungmin participated in the vocal unit collaborations alongside veteran singers to establish the group's vocal credibility. Felix took on physically demanding stunts, including a high-concept Deadpool-inspired performance of Do 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 mixed with God's Menu that caught the attention of actor Ryan Reynolds and became a viral highlight of the show. Throughout the competition, the members consistently paid subtle tribute to their missing member, leaving physical spaces in their choreographies and maintaining a unified front that signaled their expectation of his return. Their collective efforts culminated in winning the overall competition in June 2021, a victory that was not just a commercial success, but a testament to their resilience under extreme professional scrutiny. This experience proved that the remaining members could carry the weight of the group's reputation during a crisis, relying on their years of shared training to adapt to sudden changes on stage. When Hyunjin officially rejoined the group in July 2021 for the single Mixtape O and the subsequent release of their second full-length album, No Easy, the transition back to an 8-member dynamic was seamless, reinforced by the shared hardships of the preceding months. This period of adaptation solidified their collective identity, proving that their structural bond could withstand sudden absences and public pressure without fracturing. By surviving a high-profile industry crucible understaffed and still emerging victorious, they demonstrated to their agency and their audience that the core of Stray Kids was a self-sustaining unit capable of managing its own internal crises. This collective resilience set the stage for their next major transition, as they prepared to step out of the domestic television studio and onto the massive, chaotic stages of global stadium tours, where the physical demands on their bodies would reach a new entire level.
Number 4. The unspoken choreography of physical support. The transition to global stadium tours represents the pinnacle of success for a K-pop group, but it also introduces an intense physical toll that exposes the vulnerabilities of the human body under constant performance pressure. During their massive Maniac World Tour, which ran from April 2022 through April 2023, the members of Stray Kids faced a series of physical setbacks that required them to constantly adjust their live performances to protect one another's health. In February 2022, JYP Entertainment announced that Felix had been diagnosed with a herniated intervertebral disc, a severe back condition that restricted his ability to perform the group's signature high-energy choreography. Rather than sidelining him or letting him perform through the pain, the members actively modified their stage formations in real time, creating spaces where Felix could sing his parts while seated or standing still, while the rest of the group performed the intense movements around him. During live shows, Bang Chan and Lee No were frequently observed monitoring Felix's movements on stage, subtly guiding him away from potential hazards and assisting him with stage transitions during dark intervals. This physical vigilance was not isolated to one member. During the U.S. leg of the tour in Oakland, Hyunjin suffered a severe injury to his right hand, requiring him to wear a medical cast and limit his arm movements. Despite the injury, Hyunjin chose to continue performing, and the other members immediately adapted their routines to ensure he would not be accidentally bumped or jostled during complex group choreographies. Simultaneously, Seungmin and IN, the group's youngest members, stepped up to anchor the live vocal performance, delivering stable vocals and taking over lines to cover for their injured teammates, ensuring the show maintained its high standard without placing extra physical strain on those recovering. Furthermore, Han's documented struggles with social anxiety have occasionally flared up during high-stress promotional periods, leading the members to establish an unspoken protocol where they shield him from chaotic media environments, take over his speaking parts in interviews, and physically ground him on stage when he shows signs of distress. These real-time adjustments are not directed by choreography coaches offstage. They are spontaneous actions born from years of working in close physical proximity and knowing the physical limits of one another's bodies. The group's performance style, which is characterized by intense synchronization and acrobatic elements, leaves zero margin for error, making this level of mutual physical awareness essential for their safety. By prioritizing each other's physical and mental well-being over the aesthetics of a flawless performance, Stray Kids proved that their unity is functional rather than ornamental, with each member acting as a physical safeguard for the others. This practice of mutual protection during their most exhausting touring cycles created an unbreakable sense of security within the group, allowing them to face the growing demands of their expanding global footprint with confidence. But as they solidified their physical and creative synergy on the global stage, they also had to reckon with the administrative reality of their future, leading to a historic business decision that would permanently bind their professional destinies together long before their contracts were set to expire.
Number 3. A unified statement of longevity. In the South Korean music industry, the 7th year of a group's career is widely referred to as the 7-year curse because standard artist contracts are legally capped at 7 years, making this period the ultimate test of a group's survival. When contract negotiations arrive, members often choose to pursue solo careers, sign with different agencies, or dismantle the group entirely due to diverging personal ambitions and financial interests. On July 18, 2024, Stray Kids completely bypassed this industry-wide anxiety when JYP Entertainment announced that all 8 members had simultaneously renewed their exclusive contracts with the agency. What made this announcement particularly significant was its timing. Their original contracts were not set to expire until early 2025, meaning the negotiations were finalized months ahead of schedule. Early renewal of an entire 8-member lineup is an exceedingly rare event in Kpop, where individual negotiations are usually complex, private, and protracted, often leading to public uncertainty and fractured relationships. By choosing to negotiate as a single, unified entity early in the process, Bangchan, Lee No, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and IN demonstrated that their commitment to the collective was their primary professional priority. In later interviews and live broadcasts, Bangchan explained that the decision was reached naturally because every member shared the exact same vision for the future, to remain together as Stray Kids and continue making music under their own creative terms. This decision came at a time of unprecedented global demand, coinciding with historic milestones in 2024, including headlining major international music festivals like Lollapalooza in Chicago and BST Hyde Park in London, as well as becoming the first entire K-pop group to attend the Met Gala together. The contract renewal ensured that these massive opportunities were met with a stable, undivided team, sending a clear signal to the global music market and their fanbase that the internal cohesion of the group was not subject to corporate renegotiation or individual leverage. It also secured their creative independence, ensuring that 3RACHA would continue to produce their music and that the members would retain control over their artistic direction for the next phase of their career. This administrative unity provided a secure foundation for their next level of creative experimentation, allowing them to push their musical boundaries even further, confident that the team standing beside them was locked in for the long haul. But contract security is only half the battle. Maintaining a genuine friendship when your professional lives are so tightly bound requires a rare capacity to keep each other grounded, which they manage through a shared sense of humor that deflates the pressure of their monumental success.
Number 2. Humor as a shield against pressure. In the highly structured world of the Korean entertainment industry, age hierarchy and professional roles dictate how artists interact both on and off camera. But Stray Kids established an internal culture defined by playful subversion and mutual teasing that keeps their dynamic flat and equal. The oldest member and leader, Bongchan, has actively discouraged a rigid top-down hierarchy since the group's formation, allowing the younger members to speak to him casually and tease him without fear of crossing professional boundaries. This relaxed approach to traditional age dynamics created an environment where humor functions as a vital stress relief mechanism, deflating the intense psychological pressure that comes with global fame. Changbin, despite being one of the older members and a primary songwriter, frequently occupies the role of the group's primary target for good-natured teasing, a position he has explained he embraces because it maintains a light-hearted atmosphere in the practice rooms and dressing rooms. Similarly, Lee No's public persona is characterized by a dry, chaotic humor and eccentric threats, yet behind this playful exterior, the members frequently highlight his quiet acts of care, such as preparing meals and monitoring their physical safety during performances. This democratic dynamic is particularly evident in their relationship with IN, the youngest member, who is affectionately referred to by fans and the group as Maknae on top. Rather than being relegated to a subordinate role due to his youth, IN is widely doted on and holds a position of soft authority, with the older members constantly yielding to his preferences and celebrating his individual growth. Seungmin's sharp, sarcastic commentary frequently acts as a comedic counterbalance to the group's chaotic energy, keeping their interactions lively and preventing their public appearances from feeling scripted or corporate. This combination of constant banter and underlying support prevents ego clashes from taking root, as no single member is placed on an untouchable pedestal. Their self-produced variety shows, such as SKZ Code, document a group of young men who interact more like siblings in a household than colleagues in a corporate venture, engaging in physical comedy, inside jokes, and spontaneous games that have remained consistent from their rookie days to the present. Psychologically, this shared humor serves a practical purpose. It acts as a coping mechanism for the exhausting demands of their schedule, allowing them to release tension through laughter rather than letting stress build into interpersonal conflict. When they are traveling globally or working 18-hour days, the ability to find humor in their circumstances keeps the group grounded, preventing the isolation that often plagues highly successful artists. By maintaining a culture where everyone is subject to the same teasing and no one takes themselves too seriously, they have preserved a sense of normalcy within their tight circle, ensuring that the characters they present to the world are aligned with who they are when the cameras are off. This shared laughter and lack of pretense created a protective bubble around their relationship, preparing them for the ultimate realization of what their journey has built, a bond that is no longer just about survival or success, but about a shared legacy that will define the rest of their lives. Number 1. A chosen family by design. When the 8 members of Stray Kids chose their name, they were not simply selecting a marketable label. They were defining their collective identity as lost youth who had found a sense of direction and belonging in each other. Over the course of their career, they have transformed the professional association of a music group into a functional, chosen family, built on years of shared sacrifice, creative exposure, and mutual reliance. Unlike many groups that gradually prioritize individual opportunities, solo albums, and personal branding as they achieve global success, the members of Stray Kids have consistently funneled their efforts back into the collective unit. This commitment is reflected in their decision to release the track Fam, a self-produced song in which they describe each member's unique personality traits, quirks, and roles within their domestic and professional structure, officially documenting their family dynamic in their discography. This sense of kinship extends beyond the studio. The members frequently spend holidays and breaks together, choosing to gather in their shared spaces even during personal time off, highlighting a bond that exists independently of their work schedules.
This deep emotional investment was visible to millions during their milestone concerts, such as their sold-out shows at the Kyocera Dome in Japan, or the Seoul Olympic Stadium, where the members wept openly on stage, embracing each other as they realized they had achieved their long-held dreams together. These were not choreographed emotional displays, but the natural release of years of shared exhaustion and ambition, acknowledging that no single member could have reached these heights alone. Bang Chan, Lee No, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and IN have grown from teenagers navigating a grueling trainee system into mature adults who have documented every stage of their psychological development on record. The trust required to maintain this level of transparency is rare, and it is reinforced by the fact that they have faced the intense scrutiny of global stardom, physical injuries, and public controversies without turning on one another. When asked about their longevity, the members consistently describe their relationship not as a corporate partnership, but as an inescapable brotherhood, stating that they cannot imagine their lives or their careers without the other 7 beside them. By choosing to build their creative legacy together, they have established a standard of group unity that is defined by active choice rather than contract obligation. The story of Stray Kids is ultimately the story of 8 individuals who looked at the high-stakes, isolating environment of the music industry and decided that the only way to survive was to hold on to each other, creating a bond that remains as resilient today as it was when they first stood on that survival show stage. And while this journey has been defined by concrete milestones, records broken, and administrative pacts, the ultimate meaning of their decade-long bond is best understood when we step back and look at what their unity represents for their future.